So, what I want to talk about in this presentation is about getting really good at something or being the best that you can possibly be at something. And I'd like to hear from you, like just with the hands or do a wave or even shout that I want to ask you a question, and that is in your field, whatever you do, are you world class? Are you top 5, top 10, top 100? Are you there? Any one of you there? Some people, excellent. Hey, in that case, what you're doing, keep doing it. It's great. If you're saying no, but you do want to be world class, and maybe you're not just yet, this talk's totally for you. And maybe, and I find very often people don't want to admit that publicly, I wouldn't, but maybe you're just sitting there and you're thinking, well, maybe I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm born in the wrong place, I live in the wrong city, I don't have access, and maybe I don't have the talent, I don't really have what it takes. And if you sit here and this is some of your secret beliefs, this talk is definitely totally for you. The question I'd ask myself if I were you, though, is why should I listen to her? Like, why would you even listen to me? And the reason you should listen to me is because I've done it and because I can show you how can you do it. You can do it in your field. And that is because the mind game and the personal skills and the approach are the same in any field. So whether you're a software developer, a researcher, a tester, a coach, a trainer, an athlete, or whatever you actually are, the mind game for achieving excellence is exactly the same. I'm very old, so I have had a few careers in my life. In fact, I've had 3. My very first one is that I had a career playing handball, and I played for some of the best clubs in Europe. I represented Austria at the Olympic Games in Barcelona, and I was playing amongst the top 3 teams in the world. And at some point when I had to grow up, I chose the next thing. In my second career, became an Agile practitioner, software developer, and coach and trainer. Invented a method for how to have Agile teams select themselves. And I also wrote a book about how to create great teams. And that's what I do now. I help organizations create great and high performance teams. And I believe I'm qualified because I have been part of high performance teams and because I have received the coaching and done the work to know how high performance teams work. Nowadays, I am a very enthusiastic CrossFitter and I am a newly minted surfer. And as you can see, some of the things I'm doing or have done, I'm world class in. Others still working on. But the underpinning idea is that in either case, I could be the best I can be within my limitations, within my talent, within the constraints that I have, but constantly chasing excellence and finding and striving ways to challenge myself and constantly improve. And I can promise you, well, I can't actually promise you that if you follow my advice, you're going to be world class. But what I can absolutely promise you is that if you do follow my advice, that you'll get to feel the fire and the fulfillment and the joy of being the best you can be. The other thing I was thinking is because you're on the States, at least half of you are going to wonder, what the hell is handball? And it's the second biggest sport in Europe, right after football. My workplace used to look like this, and it's been Olympic since the 1970s, and it's a very fast team sport. Think of it, soccer with your hands. I was going to play a video, but because I haven't tested it, I'm not going to do that. Just imagine water polo on land, soccer on your hand, with your hands. It's a fun, very fast sport. And the point is not so much exactly what it is, but the tips that I want to share. And that gets me to my very first tip, which is pick your team wisely. And I have one guideline for that. And the one guideline I have is be the worst player on the best team that will still accept you. And why? The reason you want to do this is the better the team, the better the people around you. And this is how you learn. You learn by surrounding yourself with people who are better than you. And you have better access to coaches and better support. And you're in a culture of where high performance is normal. And that's actually really, really key. You want to normalize this high performance. You want to normalize high standards. Because trust me, as an Olympian, you don't wake up every morning, you don't walk around going, oh my God, I'm an Olympian. It's completely normal because everyone else you know is going to the Olympics too. So this is just the normal standard. And you get to set a level of ambition where you can actually make this real and achieve your goals because you're in an environment that allows for that. Basically, being surrounded by really good people, really good teams that you can learn from kind of rubs off on you and opens up possibilities you otherwise wouldn't have. There's a little caveat though about that, and that is being the worst player and chasing excellence. It absolutely sucks. And it sucks because most of the time, in fact, all of the time, you feel inadequate and embarrassed. And the reason is you don't just feel that you're not good enough. You are not good enough. You're the worst player. And this is me, age 16, in some God-forsaken place in Bulgaria, feeling like I'm never good enough, trying to survive this training camp, and being surrounded by people who are a bit older than me. I was 16. Everyone around me was like really, really old, like 25 or something. And I had nothing in common with those people. So I wasn't even sure when I should use the formal or informal you in German. And basically, it's pretty horrible being the worst person, just hanging in there for dear life. But as much as I thought about quitting, as much as I thought I could just walk out the store and play handball for fun, be a big fish in a small pond, I also knew that sticking with it would get me where I wanted to be. And I'm not here to tell you that this is really easy and we should just give up. I'm here to tell you that if you do stick with it, you can go from being the worst player to being the second worst player and be basically getting better every day. And I think that also goes for our workplaces, where the main message is being the worst player starts with choosing your organization. Go where the good people are. Pick your big team wisely. Like, don't work for any old company that's average. Choose a company where people are good, where there's a good learning environment and where people collaborate around learning, and where you receive the mentoring and the coaching and the training to develop. If you're lucky, you get to pick your own team at work. If not, and if you do, then choose your team really wisely. If not, maybe you can create the conditions to get on a team that's better skilled where you can learn. Negotiate with the people on the team, negotiate with your manager, run a guild or a side project that gives you some leverage to move somewhere where you can learn a lot. And if you really want to rock it, convince everyone to make this possible for everyone by organizing a self-selection event where everyone gets to choose the team they want to work in. So my point is, find people and places where people are better than you and learn from them. And this can be going to meetups and conferences. Yes, preaching to the converted here. But it's even further when you're at conferences, the people, the book authors, the people that you think are doing really, really good work, take the courage and talk to them, drop them an email. They're usually really nice and friendly people. So build that relationship and learn from them. Still respect their time and don't be a dick, but see if you can build a relationship and learn from all those people. Another thing that is the case with that I find is really different between professional athletes and our work is that an athlete, if we get an offer to play on a team that's better than our current team, we take it. And I feel that in our work, we have this feeling that we should stay. We owe it to the team. We owe it to the company. And we stay in teams and we stay in jobs way too long when we shouldn't. And that's a fear of letting people down. And it's good to be a nice person, don't wanting to let people down. But no one is irreplaceable. And I'm not saying be irresponsible and as soon as there's a better offer, you go, but see ya. If you get a better offer, do it like an athlete. And we've got transfer windows. We have succession planning. We don't just run away, but it is morally and ethically okay. If you have got a better offer, move on, do it in a good way. And I think we need to do that a lot more also in our professional lives. And that's why I wanted to turn it over to you. And I'd like you to take 1 minute to think about those questions. And you don't have to share, so just for yourself. Get your minutes to think about, are you the worst player? Which teams do you want to be part of? And what would get me closer? My second tip is to learn how to work with anyone. And that is something a team sport really, really teaches you. And it might sound like a platitude, but greatness is never, ever achieved alone. I'd even go as far that in a team sport, individual performance is only important as far as it contributes to the greater performance of the team. Individual performance on its own is irrelevant. And I think that is very, very similar to what is happening in our workplaces. Just if you look at the literature the last 20 years, it's all about teams, different team sizes, and everything we do, everything we achieve, none of us achieve on their own. Even if you don't feel directly that you're part of a team, even with a CEO, you're part of a team, it's just a different team. But the point is, we all work in teams. And if we do this, we might as well get really, really good at it. The thing that we often overlook, I think, is that collaboration gets harder the better you become. And I see that in sports because you start with all the amateur games or the amateur teams, and teams where people are like third, fourth, second division. They're for fun. They're friends. It's a social thing, and that's great. But if you're going for high performance, you are going by merit, and you are getting people from a talent pool that is way bigger than just your social neighborhood team. And when you draw from a bigger talent pool, diversity goes up. People are chosen by skill and by talent. And you get something that's almost radical diversity. On a sports team, well, probably most people will be roughly the same age, roughly the same gender, but socioeconomic differences are huge. I remember being on the Austrian national team, and and just the differences. I'm a gay atheist, urban. There are people on that team who were coming from the countryside, deeply religious, and homophobe. And we need to work together, because if she's the best left wing in the country, I want to play with her. So while there are values in the background, we need to still be able to talk to each other and to achieve a goal together. In workplaces, we can exclude some of the behaviors, but if you do want to have a high performance teams, then you need to leave all those things at the door and just focus on the task at hand. Our workplaces are getting more and more diverse too. But it's what you do if you can only find pictures from like a Microsoft Office people. You always use cats. Our workplaces are getting more and more diverse. And I think especially in technology, if I look around, they're not actually that diverse. I think we've got a bit of a problem there. And what that tells me is not just the part of inclusion and fairness, which most of us are aware of, but also the missing out on drawing from a talent pool that is not as big as it should be. So we're obviously missing out on really good people that could help us become better in our teams. So in an Olympic team, there are behaviors that need to be in place, but you don't hire for cultural fit. Because I think that's another one of those things that we have this idea that at work or at teams, we need to be friends to succeed. I think that's a myth. I really want to challenge that. We don't have to be friends. We don't have to like each other, but we need to respect each other and we need to trust each other. And don't get me wrong, it's very nice if you've got friends at work or on a team. This is my friend Leo, who I went to the Olympics with. And it was wonderful to have a friend on the team, but it wasn't necessary. What was necessary was to have people around me who would have my back and who I could play handball with. In order to make this happen, though, people need to want to work together. And something that makes people want to work together is having a shared goal and having a shared purpose. Otherwise, why would we do it? Relatively easy to do on a sports team because, yes, we want to qualify for the Olympic. That's a big dream. So we want to get together. We want to get over our differences and make this work. It's a bit more difficult, I think, in a workplace. And it's up on us as I work in leadership. It's up to leaders to make sure that we have a clear purpose and we have clear goals, something that makes people want to overcome the differences and turns this collection of people into an actual team. Something that makes people put the we above the just I. And in order to make that work, there's this shared purpose, and the other one is what is called the no asshole rules. This is not me swearing. This is an actual book, which, by the way, is really, really good. And this book, there's Bob Sutton looked into the cost of having one star player who's completely toxic on a team. He's got numbers and everything, but in short, the cost is giga enormous. It never pays off to have one person who's just out there for themselves on a team. In a sports team, what that looks like, that's the player who goes for their own win. That's the player who just goes to making the goal themselves. That's the player who doesn't pass. But it also happens at work, because that's the BA who refuses to learn how to write a line of code. That's the developer who refuses to test. This is the person at work who just keeps information really, really close. They don't want to share. And that's behavior that's not acceptable. That is behavior that we need to change. And I believe that if that happens, we either need to change that behavior or we need to get rid of that person. I want to have a quick interactive part again, where you interactive in a sense that you interact with yourselves. Just asking yourselves for a minute, are you working with people who are not like you? Do you share the same dreams, or what makes you work together? And can you actually play with people you don't connect with or like? give you a minute again, which is being good at feedback. I was talking about those behaviors on a team that are not okay. Talking about behaviors that do not help the team achieve its goal, and basically being a bit of a dick. And that if we couldn't change those behaviors, we needed to get rid of people. And I want to point something out, and that is that those are not personality traits. Those are behaviors. And any of those things that I pointed out earlier, I don't know about you, but I've done them. I have been the obstructive person in a meeting. I have been the person who's been multitasking. I have been the person who didn't want to do something that is good for the team, but is a bit inconvenient for myself. I've done all those things, and I would bet that most of us, knowingly or unknowingly, have displayed some of those behaviors. And if you want to change those behaviors and work as a team, the thing we need to be good at is feedback. And there are two types of feedback. There's the feedback on the field and the feedback off the field. If you're an athlete, there is the type of feedback that you need to have right here, right now, not a lot of context before and after. This is just what is happening now. I need to tell you right now that your pass needs to be in front of me, not behind me when I'm in a full sprint. I need to just be able to tell you, this is what I need from you. A really good team at work can do this without any context setting and scene setting and taking into consideration how someone might feel about this. They know each other well enough, just going, this is what I need from you. And this feedback on the field needs to work because it is so important and needs to be in real time. It can't wait to halftime. It needs to be able to be immediate, and it needs to be to come from anyone. So we can't think about, is this the captain or is this a junior player or a senior player? Right now, right here, you have an observation, you think something should be changed, speak up. That's the feedback on the field, and it's immensely important. But then there's also the feedback off the field. And that's for stuff that's a bit bigger, stuff that can wait. And that's something that I think everything is game for feedback if that behavior impacts the overall goal of the team. In that case, we need to be able to talk about it. I remember, for example, when I was about 19, early 20s, I thought it was a really good idea to go out, have some fun, drink a few beers, and when you're 20, you still make it to training the day after. And I thought I was nailing it, totally getting away with it, until one of the older players took me away and said, hey, you might think that you're getting away with it. You might think that this is only your business. You might think that it has no impact on anyone else. But if you don't give 100% to training, if you are not 100% ready, you are damaging us. This is you going to drop the ball in the Olympic final. You need to get your shit together, Sandy. This is our business, and you need to change. And what I thought was amazing about that was that it wasn't personal, it was justified, and it was of her business because it impacted everyone. And years later, I found a framework which is called radical candor, and I'm pretty sure many of you are familiar with it. And as a quick summary, it comes from Kim Scott, where she categorizes feedback around two axes. If you got something to say, are you challenging that person directly, or are you not challenging it, her, him, by not saying anything? And does it come from a place where you care about them, or does it come from a place where you don't care about it? And the place you want to be in, both giving and receiving feedback, is the place that's called radical candor, where you bring it up directly and you care. And this will be exactly the, hey, Sandy, if you keep going out, you are impacting the team. You need to change. Justified, coming from the right place and the right intent, radical candor. The others, personally, I try to get in a place where I can ignore them. And the other parts will be obnoxious aggression, That's road rage is a really good example of that. Just ignore it. Manipulative insincerity. You don't care and you don't challenge. You basically just try to make it away with a little, make the person go away with a little white lie, but you don't deal with that. And then there's the ruinous empathy, where you don't challenge and you don't care. And that one is, I think, is a big cultural problem, at least for us in New Zealand, where people are very nice. Everyone's very nice, so nobody tries to hurt your feelings. And it happened to me recently when we had someone looked at my public speaking, someone looked at our marketing, and then at the end they thought, well, if Sandy doesn't change her accent, she's not going to go anywhere. And that is great feedback. Problem is, she didn't give it to me. She gave it to my business partner. And I understand why. This is, oh, can't possibly hurt Sandy's feeling. I don't want to make her feel bad. But it is actually really unfair, because I go off working on my number 2, number 3, number 4 problem without getting that feedback. So that's ruinous empathy. And I think, well, at least in the Southern Hemisphere, we've got a pretty big problem with that. Back to radical candor. If you are in a high performance team, if you want to have high performance teams, and I think also if you want to just collaborate in a high performance way, this is the area you need to be in. Giving and receiving, or giving feedback that comes from a place of challenging and caring. And also only reacting to feedback that comes from that place. For me, if it doesn't come from a place of radical candor, I've learned to ignore feedback. And I think ignoring feedback is a really underrated skill. I've learned that from this guy who used to be the Austrian national team coach. And he taught me that most feedback is noise. Especially if you're a professional athlete, what happens is that every man and his dog has an opinion about what you should do. You got the sponsor, you got the audience, everyone's telling you what they think you should do. And what I learned from that is ignore them. Thank you very much for the feedback. Don't even listen. Because most of it is either the person is not qualified, or it doesn't come from a position of radical candor. So I think this is something that we need to do both in sports teams, but also at work. Pick the people that are worth listening to and listen. And disregard the rest. They're just a distraction. And one of the times I did this presentation, someone's like, oh, I just should ignore what everyone says. And just want to say, this is absolutely not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is most people, most feedback is unqualified and doesn't come from a place of radical candor. And even if it does, too many people giving you feedback on your performance, it's just noise. However, when you do pick a good coach, when you do pick the people you should listen to, actually listen to them. And I also think another underrated skill is being coachable. Because that person who is qualified and does want you well, absolutely try everything they suggest and be open to that. So I think that balance is really important, just really having a few people you listen to, everyone else, just ignore them. And I want you to have a quick think. First of all, how you give feedback, like the last few weeks, did it come from a place of radical candor, or did you just try to make people go away? Are you able to discard the feedback that's not from a valid source? And are you coachable and listening to the right people? Those questions are a bit more, I thought I would need to think a bit more about them. So I've given you 2 minutes to do that. Okay. Gets me to my next point, which is to constantly and actively chase excellence. And I said in the beginning The secret to chase excellence is to constantly look for opportunities where you can learn and improve. This is quote, and I can't find who said it. It might even be the Navy SEALs, but it's that under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to the level of your training. And that is so true for sports. Because sports comes with two things. One is pressure, and the other one is really, really hard work. So you can sink to the level of your training. So professional sports is fundamentally an exercise in pain management. The stuff that we do is you train twice a day, and you're 100% dedicated. And I don't know if if any of you have ever done this, but you do those uphill sprints, and you do 10 of them, and then you vomit, and then you do 5 more. But it's normal if you're in that context. And we even had that saying of no pain, no Spain, before we went to Barcelona in 92. And you're doing all this without knowing whether this is going to pay off or not. That's another kind of mental problem, because first you put in the work and then you find out, are you going to make it or not? But 4 years of this ultimately did get me to Spain. And the hard work that put in was to be able to deal with the pressure. And there's quite a lot of pressure going into World Cups and going into Olympic Games to win, to basically not stuff it up. And there's a quote from Billie Jean King that I really, really love, which is, pressure is a privilege. I think it's so true. Because if you're average, if you are not very good at what you're doing, nobody has any expectations. There is no pressure. I think pressure is earned. And some of that pressure comes from comparing yourself. And I know that we have this idea that comparison is bad. But I actually think comparison is good. Yes, some of it comes from comparing yourself to other people, knowing that you are the worst player on the best team that would just still accept you. So you know where you are, but it's also really good to know where you're at. Because you can look at the really good people, you can look at the really good teams and take that as inspiration, as fuel. Like, this is where I want to be. This is what good looks like. Where's the gap, and what do I need to do to close that gap? And people always have this like, oh my God, when I say compare, this is really bad. I even think comparing teams is fine. That's what sports does. Like, whoever shoots the most goals wins. There is no objective performance in a team sport very often. This is just relative to other teams in comparison. How good are you? But when I say compare in this sense, I don't mean compete. I don't mean compete with others. And I also don't mean follow some shallow Instagram influencer and get really and feel bad about yourself. What I'm talking about is going out and seeing who is doing really good things, who is performing well, who are the top performers in my field, both teams and individuals, and then learning from them. So my recommendation for us at work is to go out and see, both within your own company, if it's big enough. I'm sure there are pockets and there are teams that are doing really good things. Go and see what they do, and go outside your company and see what they do. And they won't all be 100% perfect or better, and they have different contexts, but we can learn from most people and from most great teams. I take my teams, I take them out and we do lean coffees with other companies and with teams in our own company. Just a lean coffee, and to see how they work, identifying any gaps, and like, cool, they're doing this thing. We should be doing this too. This is something we can learn from. And yes, there is comparison when we go, we're really in awe of this team because they're so good. How do we get that good? And individually, there is a company in Australia that I found did a really, really good job. Their personal development plans and their performance reviews just have one question: who do you want to be in 2 years? What skills do you want to have? What behaviors, what character traits do you want to have in 2 years? Who do you want to be? And I think that's a brilliant way to have people in charge of their own development and to get people who are high performance doing things they love and being who they want to be. So I want to give you another quick 1 minute round thinking about where else can you do, or where else can you chase excellence? What will you do? Where will you find more inspiration? And who are you going to go and see to learn from? Okay. And we now have another 0.4. It's very much like I've turned 35 for the last 8 years in a row. The next 0.4 is that it is really important to manage our beliefs. And that's one of the skills and training, the skills and traits that we work on as athletes. And especially if you're one of those people who in the beginning thought, I'm not really sure I believe what it takes. I think this is one of the key things to manage, to believe that you can, the beliefs you have about the world and about yourself. I'm not talking about empty, talking yourself up. There's actually way more to it. As athletes, we do a lot of mental work, and that mental work doesn't happen just when we're on the field. This is something that happens way before and in between. And by the time you show up on the field to play a game, you need to have this sussed. So we actively work on it, and we call it with training our inner athletes. And this mental work is based upon beliefs, and beliefs are inner narratives. It's the stories we're telling ourselves. And usually those are experiences that are true or have been true in our lives, something that happens and we turn this experience into a belief or an inner narrative. Some of those narratives are really helpful. Others are totally not. I'm just going to give you some examples of those inner narratives. Here are some of mine. But I can make it all away. Well, I obviously did in sports. I'm at my best when it really counts, and I don't break under pressure. And I believe those things. For example, when I did make it to the Olympics, I had to, I've been working on it for 4 years, and you start out with about 60 people, and then you lose more and more people along the way because they get discarded. So you end up with 16 people, and out of those 16, you need to go down to 14. And I think a few days before the Olympics, a few weeks before the Olympics, it was between, remember my friend Leo I mentioned, between Leo and me, where the coach walked up and said, hey, going to play a game against the US actually, and at the end, I will decide whether it's you who's going to go, Sandy, or if Leo is going to go. You get 1/2 each. And Leah went out and played the game of her life. So I had 30 minutes to play the game of my life too. And I didn't crack under pressure, and I played well. And in the end, it was a third player who got discarded, and both Leah and I made it. But this is one of the reasons that why I still have this very strong belief that I don't break under pressure. In my professional life, I also think that people like working with me. I can take any collection of people and I can turn them into a team, and I can make you love agile ways of working. Those are things that have been true at some point in my life, and I've now built a narrative around them. It's beliefs that I hold, and they're good. I also got the bad ones, the ones that are not exactly serving. Got a history of missing penalties, attrition, consistency, and that if I don't learn fast enough, I'll be replaced. And I still struggle with that. Like that picture, if you remember, where I'm on top of a gymnastics rink. I'm trying to learn a bar muscle up, and that's a CrossFit movement where you try to get on top of a bar. Completely eludes me, and I'm working with a coach. And I know the thing I'm struggling with is this old belief If I don't learn it fast enough, I'm going to be dropped. Because at some point in my life, this has been true, and it's still here. So that's a non-serving belief. Same thing with public speaking, not my thing. And I can't deal with corporate bureaucracy. Also, a bit of a fraud as an Agile coach. So there are things that happened once, twice, and that you turn into inner narratives and beliefs. Now, the thing is, you can't just go, oh, this is rubbish, it's not true, and my brain will believe it. What we as athletes do is we, as a first step, we catch our stories. The first step is awareness. We catch the stories, and whenever this comes up, I'm going to miss this penalty. Acknowledge it and do nothing. Just catch it. And then over time, replace it. Say, your inner story is, I always say the wrong thing. Cool. And now, every time you say the right thing, make a tick somewhere. Make a tick that this has happened. Because the way replacing stories works is not by just telling you to change your beliefs. It's a bit like a bucket, where you have a bucket, at the bottom there is the negative belief. And now you have little pebbles. And whenever there's anything that's where it doesn't happen, where it's positive, you add a pebble mentally until you have buried the story. And that's when the story has been buried and you can move on to your next limiting belief. A really good way of doing this is by identifying the non-serving narratives. Pick one, then every evening, as many wins as possible, note down whenever you have managed to create a little pebble to replace that story. So I want to leave you, this is the end of my tips, and I want to leave you with one bonus tip that I couldn't help myself by adding. But I think the best place to achieve excellence is to be in a place where you feel both fear and excitement. If you don't feel fear, you're probably not pushing yourself enough because you know you can do it. And if you don't feel excitement, it's not the right thing. So it's this perfect balance of excitement and a little bit of fear where I know this is the right place to be in. So I'm going to leave you with my 5 points of how to achieve excellence as a little cheat sheet. Pick your team wisely, learn how to work with anyone, get good at feedback, manage your beliefs, and keep chasing excellence. Thanks.